think this is one of the reasons for doing it.
Thanks, Deb. That saved me.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike Beck. I'm going to be sharing with you the Deming 101 materials that were previously shared at the 2025 InThinking Network Forum. And the objectives I've got for this are to, first of all, provide an overview of the person, introduce Deming's philosophy and key ideas, and learn from each other and have fun. That's the aim. And what we're going to do is introductions, timeline, overview of 14 points and 7 deadly diseases. And that's as far as we're going to get today. Tomorrow is overview of system profound knowledge and some personal perspectives and maybe some Q&A. So with that said, introductions, given that we're tight on time, I was thinking we might introduce each other, but I think I'll jump straight to the timeline. And the timeline is intended to be a very high-level overview of Dr. Deming's life. And to me, it's just amazing what he accomplished in one lifetime. And so I just want to kind of walk through this with you. Left to right, born October 14th, 1900 in Sioux City, Iowa. He moved with his family to a family farm in central Iowa when he was 3 years old. He moved again to another family farm in Powell, Wyoming when he was 6 years old. And he was there through age 16. He graduated high school early. He gets a BS of engineering degree at University of Wyoming from 17 to 21. He must have been a bright guy. He was then teaching at the Engineering University of Wyoming, at the engineering school at the University of Wyoming, 21 to 22. He gets married at the age of 22 and 22. He moves to the Colorado School of Mines. He, subsequent to that, at age 25, gets a Master of Science in Physics and Math at University of Colorado while he's working as a teacher as well. And 25 to 26, those 2 summers, he had a opportunity to spend time in a manufacturing plant. This was the telephone manufacturing plant in Hawthorne, suburb of Chicago, Illinois. And it made a big impression on him. This is the place that they started out trying to follow Taylorism and scientific management. And they were trying to discover what things made a difference in the productivity of the teams that were building the telephones. And there was a guy named Mayo that wrote this all up, but they discovered that it didn't matter what they did, increase the lighting, decrease the lighting, put people closer together, move them slightly further apart. Everything that they did, they got an improvement in productivity. And they figured out it was actually paying attention to the people and interacting with the people and turning them on for some intrinsic motivation is what the difference was. And I think that made a big difference to Deming's early thinking on manufacturing. He goes to Yale and gets a PhD in physics from 26 to 28 and starts at the USDA, Department of Agriculture, in research. And there's where he meets Walter Schuhart. From 30 to 37, he did a bunch of things, taught at the USDA grad school, published in statistics. Unfortunately, his wife died, and 2 years later, he married his wife, Lola. And in 1935, he spent the year in the United Kingdom, where he was studying with Fisher, Pearson, Neyman. These are like the godfathers of statistics, classical statistics. And in 37, he sponsors Schuhart to come give lectures at the USDA. And in 39, publishes Schuhart's statistical method from the viewpoint of quality control. This was kind of and still is, the introduction to SPC and statistical methods in quality. He goes on, there's World War II. He's at the Census Bureau advisor on sampling. During the war, he was a consultant to the Secretary of War. And from 43 to 45, he and Schuhart trained over 2,000 engineers in Schuhart's statistical methods and Plan, Do, Check, Act. After the war, he left his government posts to become a private consultant and joined the NYU Graduate School of Business. Following World War II, Japan was occupied by an occupation authority. They asked him to come to Japan and assist them in improving their abilities to produce things again. It was, as you can imagine, World War II was not very kind to Japan's manufacturing capabilities. He ends up joining as an honorary member of the Japanese Statistical Society. He taught statistical methods. He had many sessions, I don't know how many. They really took to his message and they initiated the Deming Prize. And he made multiple trips to Japan, 52, 55, 56. He was awarded in 55 the Schuhart Medal, and he came out with his book, Sampling, Design, and Business Research in 60. And this was a very big deal. The Emperor of Japan, in recognizing his contributions to the recovery of Japan, gave to Deming the Second Order Medal of the Sacred Treasure. And Deming used to always wear a small lapel pin, which was a indicator that he was the holder of this Second Order Medal. He was very proud of that. Then, after the war years and the subsequent Japanese experiences, he did teaching, lectures, consulting. He did a lot of consulting in trucking and commerce. He wrote a book, My Seventh Trip to Japan, based on a trip he did then. And in 67, he wrote another book, What Happened in Japan. He retired as an NYU professor and was focusing on his consulting when all kinds of things happened very quickly. He was featured in a NBC television special of Japan Can, Why Can't We, 1980. This was a period of time when a whole bunch of people who had never heard of Deming heard about him, and he became very popular. He was asked by all kinds of folks in senior leadership to help them improve their operations. He had his initial 4-day seminar in 1980. 1982 came out with Quality, Productivity, and Competitive Position, and Out of the Crisis. We'll be talking about those. He did about 70 4-day seminars and had a very active consulting practice. In 91, at the age of 91, he reorganized the 4-day seminars around System of Profound Knowledge from the 14 points, and he published The New Economics in 1993, the year he passed away. So my connection to all this, I was very fortunate to be in the right place at the right time. I was a young engineer, had a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. I was working in engine development at Oldsmobile in Lansing, Michigan. I applied for and was the recipient of a GM fellowship, went off, did a master's degree at Northwestern, came back having just graduated in 1984, and I went to my first 4-day seminar in 1984. It was June, right after I graduated. I spoke with Dr. Deming, got my book autographed. I was smitten with everything he said and went on a kind of a sideways track in my career thereafter. I was fortunate to be selected to be a member of the statistical group at GM Powertrain. Ended up working with Dr. Deming by picking him up at the airport when he would come into our division. I would be kind of the interpreter. We would go together to a meeting with the senior management team. I was very much a young guy here. I was in my early 30s, and the senior team from the GM executive group would ask questions, and they would pepper all of their statements with all kinds of acronyms, internal acronyms. Nobody could tell what they were saying unless you knew all the acronyms. So I would be the interpreter to explain to Dr. Deming what they just said. And then Dr. Deming would provide some position, observation. And I would have to make a translation from his very short and succinct to expand it out a little bit to help them understand. So it was very, very interesting early days I had with him, and learned a heck of a lot. So the takeaway during this whole time at the bottom there, about 170 published articles and papers. The guy was so broad and deep and active his whole life. Just an amazing, amazing person. So let me pause there and see if there's any question anybody has.
Yeah, Mike, this is Doug. So USDA, Department of Agriculture, they had a graduate school?
Yes, they had a graduate school for folks who wanted to go into, who wanted to become USDA scientists.
Wow.
And it was an internal training program, but it was actually a real grad school.
Amazing. And then, yeah, this gives me hope, having done nothing in my life, to start at 80 and then write 3 books to finish up in 93. I mean, he was writing when he was passed, when he passed away. It's just astounding. Thanks.
Yeah, it is astounding. The guy, he was as productive as 3 lifetimes in his lifetime. 3 very, very productive lifetimes within his lifetime. All right, let's go ahead. I'm having trouble getting there we go. All right, so next we're heading to this basically a review of the crisis, 1982. He shared awakening in Japan post-World War II. And the management of the organizations while inevitably leads to improvement in productivity. When you improve quality, you get better productivity. And it's a simple process. You improve quality and you have less rework. You have fewer mistakes. You learn how to use machines that are used. So all that causes costs to go down. Now you get better quality and you can lower the price with the lower costs. So you stay in business, productivity improves, and you can provide jobs and more jobs. And that was something that they understood and believed and used as the basis for their management objectives. Out of the crisis, I think, really was written as a plea to the West to get the management teams to recognize they had to do something different. The things he talked about are, and he thought of as parts of the crisis. Short-term profits were the main thing everybody worried about. And he wanted it to be understood that that is not an indicator of the performance of management. Commitment to quality and productivity has to come from top management. And it's not enough to just commit to quality and productivity. They have to know what to do. They need a theory. They need something other than best efforts. He introduced this famous diagram, basically the diagram that shows production viewed as a system. So rather than think of what you're doing as individual parts, it's a system that has to be respected. And it starts with consumer research leading you to design and redesign products that you're going to try to sell. You work with your suppliers to obtain materials and equipment. You test those. you produce, assemble, and inspect and distribute those to consumers. And during the time you're doing that production, assembly, inspection, you've got tests of processes, machines, methods, and costs. So this was used in Japan in August 1950. And I can add a little bit more color from my personal experience. After working for General Motors for 15 years and after 93, when they decided to stop paying attention to Deming, I took a right turn and went to healthcare for a short while. And then I was recruited by Toyota, and I was helping them set up Toyota Motor Manufacturing North America. And so I got to work for the folks who were the teams that were the outcome of all this work from Dr. Deming in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And they really, really understand this and believe it and do think of their production as a system in all ways. So it was very interesting to see that change in perspective and what it can do. So the 14 points, there are 14 points which are kind of wordy, but let's take them one at a time. 14 points for management. Create constancy of purpose towards improvement of product and service with the aim to become competitive and stay in business and to provide jobs. It sounds so simple. Constancy of purpose. Just keep the focus on. That's one of the things I would say that Western management has proven itself to have difficulty with. There's always the new fad. There's always the new approach. There's always I don't know, there's new products that they think might have a market, but haven't done the research to find out. It's an interesting difficulty that Western management has. Constancy of purpose. Improvement happens over time through innovation. So therefore, you have to put resources into research and education. It also requires continual improvement in the design of product and service offerings. What's the aim of the company? That depends on what management wants. So I think the average CEO is in their position for 4 to 6 years in the United States. There's turnover in management. It's really difficult for constancy of purpose to find a home in the US. The second point, adopt the new philosophy. We're in a new economic age. Western management must awaken to the challenge, must learn their responsibilities, take on leadership for change. That was written in 1980 when maybe in the early 80s, came out in 84. I think Western management still needs to awaken to the challenge. It's interesting. This new economic age was created by Japan, and awakening to the challenge requires they learn a theory of management. Without a theory of leadership or management, they couldn't even draw a flow diagram of what they're trying to do. So it's a request to the senior managers of the time to change. Cease dependence on inspection to achieve quality, build quality in. Yeah, there's going to have to be inspections. The point is to do it to improve the system. And sometimes you do have to separate bad from good product, but it's not good practice to do so. It's not affordable. End the practice of awarding the business to your suppliers on the basis of price tag. Instead, minimize total cost. You should move toward a single supplier for any one item. And that's one of the ones that many folks just had a terrible time with. The last place I was associated with in my last position, I moved into a senior role at a manufacturer in Ohio. And just before I had arrived there, the supply chain team were very proud of themselves. They had just rebid all the products, and they'd gone for the lowest cost, and they'd saved so much money for the company. And the quality problems that were created were so bad that we then did a cost savings program by going back to the original suppliers. Why work with your supplier? Because it's not the first cost, it's the total cost. Deming described different worlds you can find yourself in. And in world one, the customer, that is the organization purchasing the components to be used in their production, they know what they want. They can define in operational terms what that is. Multiple suppliers are available that can supply the product with good quality. They all provide a quote. The prices are different. The cost of purchase, the price tag, is the only cost. In that world, it would be foolish to do anything but buy on price tag alone. But nobody works in that world. There are suppliers who have different service levels. Some suppliers might have better knowledge about the product and the needs of the customer and can help the customer. And if you have a supplier like that available to you, you should consider them and consider the long-term total cost of working with those suppliers. So interesting ideas there on price tag. Point 5, improve constantly and forever the system of production and service to improve quality and productivity, and thus constantly decrease costs. Quality starts with the intent, and that's decided by management. The intent has to be translated into specifications, tests, all the things necessary to deliver to the customer the quality that's intended. So quality has to be built in at the design stage. And that's something that is often misunderstood. Institute training on the job. Now, this is different than education. When we say training, we're talking about skills both for management and new employees. People learn in different ways. Some people learn by reading, some by listening, some by demonstration, pictures. When an individual they've been learning a skill and they're on a learning curve, they're getting better and better. When they reach a stable state, further lessons will not help the worker. So Deming, in his 4-day seminars, he would talk about him learning the game of golf as an example of this. And if you're learning something that's a skill like golf, you learn step by step the grip, the position, the rotation, how your hands go through. If you do all those things and you are still learning, you're getting better, additional training will help. You can get better. But if you stop training and you develop a stable new swing for you, but it's not a very good one, later on, lessons will be very difficult to overcome what you've already learned. So lessons need to be run for a new employee or a new learner. And once they've reached a stable state, it's too late. You only have one chance. So when you provide training to the new individual, it's important that they get training from people who know the job. They need to learn from a master, not the person who just learned most recently. Institute leadership, number 7. Aim of supervision should be to help people and machines and gadgets to do a better job. Supervision of management is in need of overhaul, as well as supervision of production workers. It requires that managers become leaders. Focusing on the outcomes has to be abolished and leadership put in place instead. It's not MBO, management by numbers, 0 defects, performance appraisals. Leadership is what's required. Drive out fear, number 8, so that everybody can work effectively. He talks about reactive behavior. there's two kinds of reactive behavior: fear, where you know what you're fearing, and anxiety, where the agent of your fear is not known. No one can put forward their best performance unless they feel secure. And when secure, people can experience joy in work. So it's important that fear not be part of the workplace. And boy, is this one tough. In my career, I've done a lot of consulting, and for some reason, the kind of folks who engender fear in their employees are seemingly respected by other leaders for whatever reason. I have no idea, but they do not get good results in the long term. They can sometimes scare people into making activity that looks like progress, but it generally results in people hiding problems, and it ends up not for the best in the long term, in my experience. Number 9, break down barriers. People in research, design, sales, and production have to work as a team to foresee problems in production and use that in use that may be encountered with a product or service. And if you don't work as a team, you get sub-optimization. It destroys the intended system. Optimization requires knowledge, and knowledge is not self-generating. Point 10, eliminate slogans, exhortations, and targets for the workforce, asking for 0 defects. What's wrong with posters and exhortations? They're directed at the wrong people. It's not the people who are doing the work that can change the system of work. It takes no account of the fact that most of the problems are attributable to the system. Point 11, eliminate quotas, substitute leadership. Eliminate management by objective, eliminate management by numbers, numerical goals, substitute leadership. And this gets kind of difficult for people to understand, because you do have to have numbers. You do have to know whether you're doing well or not. You have to track your production, but you don't manage just by the numbers. You manage by understanding what the numbers are telling you about your system. If you've got a quota, Deming says it's a fortress against improvement of quality and productivity. Why? Because you get to the quota and you can stop for the day. We've met the quota. MBO is focused on results, not methods nor the interactions. Point 12, remove barriers that rob the hourly worker to his pride of workmanship. The responsibility of supervisors must be changed from sheer numbers to quality. Remove barriers that rob people in management and in engineering of their right to pride of workmanship. This means abolishment of the annual or merit rating and management by objective. That's one that was really hard to get across to the management teams I've worked with. When the system is not capable of delivering the targeted result, there can be no joy in work. Point 13, institute a vigorous program of education and self-improvement. Put everybody in the company to work to accomplish the transformation. The transformation is everybody's job. Encourage education and self-improvement for everyone. Raise the capability of the overall system. And the 14th point of management, put everybody in the company to work to accomplish the transformation. The transformation is everybody's job. Take action to accomplish the transformation. So management in authority, in order to implement this, are going to need to struggle over the above 13 points, deadly diseases and obstacles. They're going to need to agree on their meaning and the direction to take. They need to agree to carry out the new philosophy. Management and authority will take pride in their adoption of the new philosophy. They will have the courage to break with tradition, even to the point of exile among their peers. Management and authority will explain by seminars and other means to a critical mass of people in the company why the change is necessary and that the change will involve everybody. So this was a major, major ask to top management. And not very many people were able to make this transformation. The 7 deadly diseases and obstacles, lack of constancy of purpose. They're basically not doing elements of the 14 points. Lack of constancy of purpose, emphasis on short-term profits, evaluation of performance merit rating or annual review, mobility of management, job hopping, management by use of only visible figures with little or no consideration of figures that are unknown or unknowable, excessive medical costs, which was mentioned as beyond the scope of the book, and excessive costs of liability swelled by lawyers that work on contingency fees. So back in '84, he was calling out medical costs and liability costs. So 14 points in 7 deadly diseases. It's a very fast take on what he was trying to get across in Out of the Crisis. I'm thinking it would be appropriate to pause here and just see if there's any comments or observations anyone has as they're thinking about all of that.
Well, my first comment, Mike, is thank you. This is my second time going through this presentation. I had a chance to see it this summer. And I'm now currently reading the book of the new economics, but I really appreciate one, your experience of working with Deming and actually applying his principles. But this quick overview to your point is really good. You know, you can read the book. His books are hard to read, but hearing it in your voice and his words is really impactful, and I appreciate that, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Any other comments or questions or things that anyone would like to share?
Yeah, Mike, Dick Steele here. I know ranking and rating is bad, but that timeline that you presented was the best I've ever seen.
Thanks. It's amazing to me what he has accomplished, what he had accomplished.
Yeah, but you have it so nice and concise, you know, when he did when, you know, what. And that I've never seen anything that good.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that adds a little bit of sense of sequence of what was his influences at what time. And I knew he did a lot of his most famous work after he was 80, but you know, that's it still had to come from somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, and 170 different articles and publications. It's amazing.
Yeah, Mike,
right.
this is Deb.
Yes, Deb.
This is the first time I've heard your presentation because I wasn't able to during the event. So thank you so much for putting it together. I'm glad we're recording it. This is something the nation continues to violate. These things with such adverse impact. I mean, from point A to point Z. And I don't know how we're going to get this out, but I sure hope that we're going to get this out because this hasn't changed. This is still the same observation and path ahead. And yet we can't seem to get there because the people who can influence the most aren't listening. So we're, you know, it's like we have a lot of history, but we don't seem to learn much.
Yes.
You know, and we
Yes.
have all this history and oh my gosh. And yeah, so this getting it into the schools, getting it into, you know, keep reintroducing it because people want something new. And so the thing is that's the killer of a lot of things if you're not following certain just guidelines, standards, universal principles. Treating people, you know, causing fear among people is one of the big ones that popped out. It's like, yeah, if your people don't fear you, then they're not going to offer up those things that you need to hear, and you can circumvent in the early stages, and at the end, it's like catastrophic to an organization or into lives.
Yes.
You know, and this is a way that can happen Um, and it's just our ability to communicate it to a current audience. Yeah. So you've done it in a very short time frame, and I hope that we can get this out to a lot of people.
Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you for those comments. All right.
That's an excellent point. As somebody on a job search and looking at job postings all day, most days, I find it interesting how it's become common speak to say data-driven decision making. Well, that leaves out the intellect and the wisdom component of decision making. You're just going to follow the numbers. Eventually, you'll have a machine that makes all the decisions, but you know, not really. Uh, and and yes, there's a lot about Western management that seems perpetually in dysfunction.
Mhm.
The last thing I just hit me, and you're going to think it's a little crazy probably, but the audience that I really want to arm with this are the empaths of the world. I didn't know I was one, but you can sense when things are not working well, before you're told, or the data is there, and those people, we're getting a lot more of that. I just think that's an audience, because now you're arming them with the research that's behind. That's what happened to me, is they go out there and you get hammered by people who do traditional systems, and you see they're not working, but they will ignore that because they're data driven. Um, Even though in the long term, the data proves it out, but never mind. But it usually is after the person has left. That's the problem. It's a lagging indicator. A lot of the
Yes.
things we're seeing, you don't that are to what you just spoke about.
Yes.
And but empaths understand this probably most of all. And there are certain audiences that you can get this to, because they're in every walk of life. But we will never get better if we don't at least stop violating some of those basic, as you said, the 14 points. So anyway, thank you.
All right. Well, let's proceed ahead. We're going to take a look at the system of profound knowledge now. And let me make a change on my screen. So 1993, the New Economics, Deming spoke about the system of profound knowledge. The prevailing style of management must undergo a transformation. A system cannot understand itself. The transformation requires an outside view. The first step is transformation of the individual. This transformation is discontinuous. It jumps from understanding of the system of profound knowledge. The individual, transformed, will perceive new meaning to his life, to events, to numbers, to interactions between people. Pretty heavy paragraph. The transformation is discontinuous. Deming used to speak about this on the second day and the third day and the fourth day. And he would sometimes share stories of individuals who he thought were indicating that they were transformed. They had a transforming experience through the 4 days. I think it was that way for me. I thought I came out of business school thinking I knew a heck of a lot. And I really realized in that first Deming 4-day seminar in 1984 I attended, I understood there was a lot I was missing, and it set me off to a whole new direction in my career. So that's the introduction, page 63. System of profound knowledge consists of 4 things: theory of variation, theory of knowledge, theory of psychology, and appreciation for a system. And there's a few things we need to learn about each of those to get a basic understanding. We're going to start with theory of variation. And it's looking like about 15 minutes left. I'll see if I get probably through theory of variation, and we'll save the balance for tomorrow's session, same time, same channel. Theory of variation, statistics, common and special causes, analytic and enumerative, and two kinds of mistakes. Those are the things we're going to cover. First of all, I want to talk about outcome variation. Here is a graph. It's a histogram. It's got a few features on it. It's got a scale at the bottom, goes from 55 to 205. It's hard to read that last 2 there. And there's some things that are labeled there, LSL lower spec limit, USL upper spec limit. And this could be any kind of data. I told you I was early in my career an engine design guy, and you've got a crankshaft, and you've got bearings and connecting rods, and there's a clearance between the bearings and the crankshaft, and there's an oil film that occurs in that area, in that gap. And 85 microns is about 2.5 thousandths of an inch, and 175 microns is about 8 thousandths of an inch. And if it's in that range for a rotating mechanical system with lubrication, that could be what we're talking about, something like a mechanical clearance. It could, maybe those are minutes, and maybe this is an IT help desk at the escalation desk when the first individual attempting to solve the problem ran into a roadblock. It gets escalated. And this is the time that is observed for resolution of the problem. In any case, we've got some data here. If you were to be asked, what's it look like? I want to get some feedback quickly here. What do you think? Is this looking good or not? What are some ideas? Anybody shout it out.
Loss function.
What's that?
I say you need a loss function.
Oh yeah, well, you're on the advanced stuff, Dick. That's true. We're going to get there.
Hey, it's between the upper and lower, so it's all good, right? It's right in the middle.
It
So
looks good.
yeah,
It
looks
looks
good.
pretty good, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So if this is the data you're looking at, what can you say about what's going to happen?
It's probably gonna fall in there somewhere.
Nothing's going to happen.
They'll continue the way they are.
So that's the assumption that most folks make. You're looking at data, and this is a capture of a grouping of data. There's actually 200 data points represented on this graph. And there's a couple different ways we could get this data. One way we could get this data would look like this. And this is intended to represent a stable process. And now stable is something that people can get confused, because you look at these, it looks like the points go up and down a lot. And so in that sense, they're stable, but with wide variability, from 55 to, well, it looks like they're running from 80 to 165, doesn't it? So
170, yeah.
Yeah, 170 with that high one on the left there. So if this were the source of the data that turned into that, you have some kind of a basis for saying, yeah, it looks good, and it looks like if things don't change, they're going to stay in that range. But that's the key point. We need to understand the data over time, because those 200 points rearrange. This is, by the way, this is stable. And so the terminology is that the type of variation that we see there is common cause. All the causes for the variation are happening equally across time, and there's nothing special happening across time. That's common cause variation. Those 200 points could show up differently in time, however. But those same 200 points could be arranged in time, like the top graph there. Those 200 points are the same 200 points, just rearranged in time. What would you say about the likelihood of that result remaining in the good range if this is what you see for the results over time?
it will not remain in the range.
Yeah, it looks like there's a trend going up. There's something that is changing over time. And if you're in a manufacturing or machining area and the tool is wearing, so the hole size is changing over time with wear, you would get this kind of a potential, this kind of a curve. And if you didn't do anything about it, you're going to keep on going. It's going to go out of the upper spec limit. Now, what do you think is going on in the lower graph there? What does it look like is happening there? There's kind of a chunk of time. The first 40 are running in one range. And it looks like there's a jump down, maybe from 40 to 80, it's operating in a different environment. And from 80 to 120, it's kind of around 120 a little bit. And then there's a couple zigs and zags. This is indicating there might be multiple things going on other than just the top one. You can say there's maybe something causing a drift upward, but we've got a number of indications of patterns that look non-random. So the problem with the first graph is none of that is shown. That hides all the data, all the information about time in the summary statistic. So we need to understand that. There's two kinds of mistakes, and I need to introduce the concept of common cause is the variation that's present at all times, and special cause is something that changes over time. Special causes seem to be occurring after point 40 on the lower graph here. Something happened to lower the average, then it runs around an average of 100 for a while, then it jumps up. So there's something special happening in those time periods. And there are statistical process control tools that can be used to identify them and specifically find out what they are, how much, et cetera. We're not going to go into all that. But you do need to understand the two kinds of mistakes that can be made. Mistake one is to ascribe a variation or a mistake to a special cause when in fact the cause belongs to the system. And the system is all the common causes. They're all a whole bunch of small little causes that individually you can't tell what they're doing, but taken together, they cause this pattern of fuzziness in the results. Mistake two is to ascribe a variation or a mistake to the system, common cause, when in fact there was a special cause. There was something special. So overadjustment is a common example of mistake one. If you back here don't even look at this data, if you just look at that data, you look at 100 is the first observation, and then it jumps to 155, 157. You would say, oh my God, we wanted to be at around 120. Let's adjust the machine to reset it at the target of 120. And now you go from there and you get a new observation and you adjust again. If you adjust all the time, you end up with mistake one being the only mistake and you make it all the time. Never doing anything to try to find a special cause is a common example of mistake two. So if you just let it run, you don't look around, you just assume it's always the system, you miss the opportunity to make a change for the better. So Walter Schuhart recognized good management consists of making mistake one now and then, as well as mistake two now and then. And he invented the 3 sigma control limits that are used to reduce the loss from making both mistakes. That's SPC, statistical process control. And that's been around for, let's see here, 25, 75, 85 years now. And it's still got applications that people are not taking advantage of. So when you have a stable underlying process, this is the first graph again. If you apply those statistical process control methods, you can get something called the upper control limit and the lower control limit. And these two lines you plot on the chart, and they basically provide for you the operational definition of a special cause. If you get a result that goes outside the upper control limit, or goes outside the lower control limit, it's rational and appropriate to stop and say, okay, something special just happened. Let's go look and see if we can understand what went differently this time. And you can have an upper control limit that, or a lower control limit, which is, well, let me start over there. You can have a control limit set up where there's only an upper or only a lower. You're trying to stay low with an upper and trying to stay low with a upper, trying to stay high with a lower. In any case, these are tools that can be used in all kinds of applications. How much time we got? 5 minutes. Let me talk for a few minutes about enumerative versus analytic studies. This is something else that was introduced by Dr. Deming. We need some words and some definitions. There's a universe, which is a collection of objects that have some characteristics that you're interested in understanding and describing. The universe you get by understanding what's the aim of the study. Now, you can't look at everything, so you look at a frame, and it's a subset of the universe that you sample, you label it, and you're able to identify units, and from that you draw a sample. And from the sample, you apply a theory of sampling that provides a means for sampling the error and the uncertainty, and like it would be called sigma. What's the uncertainty of this? And you describe the frame. Analytic studies, it's the same idea, but your universe is always, when you're working in the analytic, in the enumerative, you're dealing with one period of time. In the analytic, there are different time periods. There's a past, there's a future, and you've got the current available. And when you recognize that you're studying, you're working on an analytic study, you must recognize that the data you have in front of you, you have to make an assumption about the universe of the future. And it's subject matter knowledge, which allows you to make some statement about the future. It's knowledge about the repeatability of the conditions from the past to the present, and therefore what might be the future, and all the things you've learned about your previous sampling. So that is a definition which is, it features in the Out of the Crisis, and I wanted to make sure it was clear to folks. Analytic versus enumerative studies, the distinction is on the nature of the frame. If the frame is static on hand and available for evaluation, an example given is a shipload of iron ore. You're going to take samples from the unloading process. You're going to check those and understand the level of iron content in the ore. You're doing this to get the price that you would be willing to pay for the iron ore. You use statistics, and you're able to do an enumerative study on everything in that ship. If the frame is from an ongoing process, like the sample of production of a manufactured item, and you want to understand what will next month's results be, you're conducting an analytic study. You cannot take a random sample of the future, so therefore, the plan you make for the future requires subject matter knowledge and knowledge about the causes of variation that are at work in the process. And Dick, you were way ahead of things. There is something else to be considered, and that is that when you're looking at the loss in a system, it's very common for people to think that the lower acceptable limit, the lower specification limit, in the range up to the upper acceptable limit, upper spec limit, that in that range, they're all acceptable, so they must be the same, right? And the answer to that question is no. Actually, that's an economic decision. What is just acceptable on the low side? What is just acceptable on the high side? with an ideal being somewhere else, when you understand that, you realize that the loss is actually lowest at the ideal, and it increases, and sometimes it's shown as a parabola. And the intent is for you to minimize total loss. There's actually an economic benefit to reducing the variation below the current spec limits that were initially defined based on early understanding of how things work. And this graph and this understanding is an example of what Japan did so much better than the United States did in automobile manufacturing. I could go on for stories, comparing my understanding of things as I learned it in General Motors to how I learned it in Toyota. I could go on at length, but we're out of time. The red bead experiment, I'm going to skip. That would take us a little bit too much time, and I'll end this segment with candidate management processes for SPC. So statistical process control, most folks think of in the context of machining or manufacturing, where you get data out of the machine. Actually, if you're looking at management processes, a great one to look at is accounts receivable, where the variable is going to be the accounts greater than or equal to 5 weeks overdue divided by the amount of business done in the past 5 weeks. What's the proportion of overdue amount on a running 5-week period of time? You learn a lot about what's going on in a company from overdue accounts. What the heck is our problem here? Wrong count, poor quality, invoice didn't get the promised discount, they were late on arrival. What is the issue here that's causing this? Another one, accidents, absenteeism, the proportion of orders shipped on time, complaints, number of new customers, hours spent in meetings. There's a lot of things you can put SPC to, and it is very interesting when you do so. All right, key points on variation. Stability is the basis for prediction. Plot the data over time. Use statistical process control to understand the behavior of the process and to address opportunities for improvement. And realize that prediction for the future is not a statistical judgment, it's a subject matter judgment. So with that, that's theory of variation. And we're 2 minutes over. I would like to invite anybody who's got a destination they got to get to jump off, but we can take questions on this section if anybody has any.
Just have a comment, Mike. I'm amazed. I think he said statistical process control is about 70 plus years old. And it's amazing when you actually use, we call them process behavior charts, but when you applied those two data, people were blown away by, what they couldn't see in the data prior. But why isn't this more pervasive? I do not understand why this is not known and used more across all industries. I'm amazed that this has not caught on.
I am too. I guess math is hard. Statistics are difficult to grasp. They're kind of like not the first thing you think of, maybe.
Well, my perception is that in Japan, the operator is trained on how to do this.
Yes. And in
You
good
can't
environments,
you can't hardly get a Western employee to figure out his own hours for lunch, or something similar.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a very good question. Something that we all have as our challenge to help continue to help change. Any other comments or observations for theory of variation?
Mike,
all right, go ahead.
Yeah, one comment, minor, from earlier. You were saying, the further lessons once it's in control don't help, or will not do any good.
That's in training for
In
a
training.
skill.
Yeah,
And
in
training
training.
for a skill. Once you've gotten into a stable condition, then further training won't assist you. You've learned a pattern. And this is for like things that require a knack, where there's a physical thing you're trying to accomplish. Now, I suppose it is possible to reconfigure your brain over a long period of time, but the people suffer problems with their physical capabilities, and they come up with new ways to do things. So you can overcome a stable process that is a physical capability, but it's hard.
Well, I think the key there is you have to change the process. It's like golfers going out, and you have an instructor, and once you get a stable state with that instructor, you're done with him. But there may be a different instructor that has a different methodology, and that will change the results.
It's possible.
It could, yeah.
It's possible, yeah. I think rather than say it's impossible, it's difficult. It's very difficult to overcome a pattern of behavior that you've learned through training already.
Yeah, it's impossible for sure with the same process, same learning process.
Yeah, I would agree. There's some nuance here. All right, I'm going to save theory of knowledge, theory of psychology, appreciation for a system, and my personal observations for our round 2 tomorrow at 1 Eastern, 10 Pacific, and I think that's maybe a wrap. Chuck, any final comment?
No, thanks everybody for being here today. And look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Make sure you
Thank
record
you.
it, Chuck. I can't,
I will. I normally am better at that, but
I know. But
Mike and I were talking beforehand, and it was like not for recording, and then we started. So
Who trained you on that?
The rest,
Ian, because I let him go through one presentation one time, or one of the forum team meetings, and we got 20 minutes in, and then Bill joined, and then we realized, oh, we haven't recorded anything.
yeah. Well, I can't be here tomorrow, Mike, but thank you so much. This was great.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you, Mike. Really appreciate it. Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.